James Jimmy Earl Carter Jr. was the 39th President of the United States. James Earl Carter Sr. and Bessie Lillian Gordy, the proud parents of the 76th Governor of Georgia, lived up to his father's footsteps in the military, who served as a lieutenant in the U.S. Army's Quartermaster Corps during World War I. Jimmy attended the U.S. Naval Academy in Indianapolis and later served deployment in the Atlantic and Pacific fleets. Later, he was granted with being the lieutenant like his father. After graduating the Naval Academy in 1953, Jimmy and his wife, Rosalind Carter, resided in Plains, Georgia, where he ran for governor. The first time he ran, he came in third. After running a second time and defeating Carl Sanders, he became governor of Georgia. Due to his power of governor, he tried to eliminate segregation, increase the amount of black officials in the state government, and promote education and prison reforms. When it came time for him to consider running for president, his main focus on energy and decreasing oil prices helped him win by a landslide in the 1976 election. With 297 to 240 electoral votes, Carter won.
With gratitude and with determination, I accept your nomination.
On February 2, 1977, Carter asked the American people to cut down their energy usage during a fireside chat. During the energy crisis, barrels of oil shot up from $3 to $12. Americans faced price hikes and gas shortages, causing lines to form all over the country. In April, Carter introduced his solutions. He proposed to emphasize conservation, and he envisioned a smooth transition to an era of high-priced oil. He relied heavily on the taxing power to encourage people to shift from larger automobiles to smaller ones and to cut back on the miles they drove. The president, others in the administration, and the Democratic National Committee waged a massive campaign to build support. In spite of Carter's populism, his proposals did not have enough support from the people to overcome opposition from the interests. In fact, most people opposed his energy package. By emphasizing conservation rather than the development of new resources, the program seemed to call upon Americans to change their lifestyle, and most did not want to do that. Furthermore, most people did not believe the energy problem was as serious as the president suggested. With confidence in Carter declining, his ability to shape public opinion on this issue suffered, and he could not rally public support. In addition, this program's heavy reliance on taxes ran head-on to a growing revolt against taxes. Thus, the people did not rise up and help Carter by putting pressure on Congress. Consequently, the legislation that finally passed in October 1978, although not unimportant, fell far short of his desires. When Jimmy Carter took office in January 1977, unemployment had reached 7.4%. In the early 1970s, the economy started to suffer from stagnation, high unemployment, and inflation, coupled with stagnant economic growth. Carter responded with an ambitious spending program and called for the Federal Reserve to expand the money supply. Within 2 years, inflation had climbed to 13.3%. With inflation getting out of hand, the Federal Reserve Board announced in 1979 that it would fight inflation by restraining the growth of the money supply. Unemployment increased and interest rates rose to their highest levels in the nation's history. By November 1982, unemployment hit 10.8%, the highest since 1948. 1 out of every 5 American workers went some time without a job. Along with high interest rates, the Carter administration adopted another weapon in the battle against stagflation, deregulation. Convinced that regulators too often protected the industries they were supposed to oversee, the Carter administration deregulated air and surface transportation and the savings and loan industry. Rural towns suffered cutbacks in bus, rail, and air services. Trucks and railroad workers lost the economic benefits of regulation. Travelers complained about rising airfares and congested airports. Cable TV viewers resented rising rates. Supporters of deregulation, however, argued that the policy increased competition, stimulated new investment, and forced inefficient firms either to become more efficient or to close down.
As long as I am president, the government of the United States will continue throughout the world to enhance human rights.
Carter's goal for human rights was to create activities to make nations and other individuals realize what the civil rights and political rights were. Carter ended up suspending the U.S. military aid and economic aid from countries including El Salvador, Nicaragua, Chile, and Uganda. He did this because these countries were not practicing the human rights he wanted them to be practicing. In 1977, there was a treaty created by Jimmy Carter that allowed Panama to receive control over the Panama Canal on December 20th of 1999. This treaty was later ratified by the U.S. Senate in 1978. Later after this treaty, it brought the U.S. and Latin America more closer together. The Camp David Accords was a treaty created by Carter on September 17, 1978. It was a treaty to create peace with Israel and Egypt because they were enemies for a long time. This peace treaty stated that Israel had to give up the Sinai Peninsula, which was a peninsula in Egypt that Israel captured during the Six-Day War in 1967. Egypt, in return, had to recognize Israel's right to exist. On November 4, 1979, students from Iran that were armed stormed into the United States Embassy, which was in Tehran, and ended up taking more than 60 Americans hostage. The students demanded that the U.S. were to send the Shah back to Iran in order for the hostages to be released. Carter later then refused. Carter eliminated all grain sales to the Soviet Union and demanded all of the U.S. athletes participating to boycott the 1980 Moscow Summer Olympic Games. This then created what is known as SALT and SALT II. These both provide limits on the number of weapons and nuclear launches. In 1980, Carter reacts to an issue in Afghanistan. The Soviets invaded Afghanistan, which later led to Soviet-Afghanistan War. Carter became angry about this issue and decided not to fight.
Jimmy Carter went through a term of presidency of dislike, a lack of trust from the public, and a lasting opinion of him being ineffective and stubborn due to his lack of compromise with legislation. Throughout his term, Carter portrayed himself as a new type of Democrat. Years went on after Carter's presidency ended when he lost his re-election in 1980 before an unexpected appreciation rose for him after the realization came to the public's mind of the tasks he was put through and the crises he managed during his term, such as the energy crisis, the Soviet Union aggression, Iran hostages, and the Camp David Accords. Some compare Jimmy Carter to our 36th president, Lyndon B. Johnson, also known as LBJ, due to his lack of likeliness in the public eyes, and that those seem to believe that both presidents got little to none accomplished during their terms as presidents. After losing his re-election in 1980, Carter still took an active part in the world and decided to create the Carter Center in 1982. The Carter Center works to help resolve conflict, advance human rights and democracy. It was also built to prevent diseases and hunger. Along with the creation of the Carter Center, Carter also received a Nobel Peace Prize in 2002 for his decades of untiring efforts of finding peaceful solutions in international conflicts, his advancements in human rights and democracy, along with his solutions to promote social and economic development.